Say hey. You.
Hey guys.
So you can just talk normal.
What's up, guys?
Let's get to it. Here's your intro.
Okay, guys. Ooh, live opening.
Woohoo!
Welcome back to Conversation Farters.
Welcome, everybody.
This is episode 5 of the podcast.
And it is also our season finale. Yay!
Yay!
Yeah, all right. Yeah, it's time to wrap it up. It's been fun.
Oh, yay.
So with this episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different.
So this week's episode is going to be called The Shelf, and we're going to be talking about our favorite comics from comics and books, and things in general, actually, from our bookshelves.
From our personal collections.
Yeah, I have a stack of things. Brett's got a stack of things, and let's get right to it.
Segment. Do I go first, or do you go first?
Yeah, you do one first.
Okay, so the first thing I would like to talk about, it's very popular. I'd be surprised if you guys didn't know about it. It is called Scott Pilgrim. It is a fantastic graphic novel series of 6 volumes. So it's about this young dude. He's 22 years old, and he lives with his gay friend Wallace Wells. He also plays in a band called Sex Babam. It's really funny, that sort of dynamic between him and his friends. And the whole thing is basically... So I won't give away too much, but it is super, super fun. The panel layout is very creative. Brian Lee O'Malley, the writer and artist, is like really, really talented dude. Yeah. And you can see his progression even within just the series. But if you check out like his Instagram or his Twitter, like you can, like he's posting art all the time, and he's really, really good, especially at stuff like fashion and makeup and things like that.
Yeah, he's extremely skilled. His other book, Seconds, and his book before Scott Pilgrim, he had one before that called
Lost at Sea.
Lost at Sea. It's okay. It's not as good as Scott Pilgrim, but you can watch his art progress from Lost at Sea to Scott Pilgrim, and then his newest book, Seconds, was really, really, really great.
So Scott Pilgrim, I got it for that much money, and I love it. You can get them in hardback individually for color, and they look brilliant.
The colored editions are amazing.
The only one that I have in color is the 6th volume because it's the bulkiest. It has the most meat to it, and I'm poor. I don't have enough to get all of them.
It also has the bonus material.
Yeah, and if you get the hardbacks, in the back he includes like little sketches and character designs and stuff, and it's just so friggin'
I love
cool.
when artists do that. It's always like a fun little thing to have.
It's awesome. So yeah, that's mine.
It's a pretty little book.
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah. First thing I'm going to talk about today is a book that I just recently got, and I read it a couple times beforehand online, but I just got a copy recently. It's called Heavy Liquid by Paul Pope. And Paul Pope is one of my favorite artists ever. Like, he's honestly amazing.
Oh, it smells so good, dude. You want some?
No, I'm going to finish talking about this. And Heavy Liquid is a story about this guy who's kind of like this drug dealer kind of guy, but the drug he's dealing is this metal that you melt down, and it's from like an asteroid. It's from space, and you put it in your ear. It's really crazy and interesting, and there's like stuff with the government, and it's
what does
really...
it do to you? What's the effects of the drug?
Spoiler. I'm not going to spoil it because it's actually like it's a shortish graphic novel, but it's pretty dense, and it's really... The art is, if you Google Paul Pope, you'll see a bunch of amazing art. He's so good. He inks with a brush, and it really, really shows. And also, it's like there are like 4 colors in the book, or 3 colors. Yeah, there's like 2 different shades of blue. There's a pink and red in the book, and that's all that is colored in the book, and it looks really awesome.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great book. So that's the first thing off my shelf. Actually, anything by Paul Pope is just great, though. I haven't read anything by him that I didn't like.
So I didn't want to just get graphic novels because I don't have too many.
That's like almost all I have in my room. So like almost everything in my stack is a graphic novel.
Yeah. So I got a couple of art books and stuff, too. One of them is called Cartooning for the Beginner by Christopher Hart. This was actually one of the first things that I got. I got it when I was like 13, and I actually learned from it. Like a lot of the principles I actually applied to how I draw now. Like the action line, it taught me a little bit about proportion from like the cartooning standpoint. How like a hand should look, like a bunch of just little things that added up and that carried over and I still use.
For you got that book like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
For me, I started using that book 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I hated it because when I started drawing, I wanted to draw like Art Spielman, who did
Yeah.
Mouse.
That was one thing that I like.
It's very just one style.
For some reason, I can't do this with many other artists, but I was able to dismiss Christopher Hart's style. I don't enjoy his style too much. I respect it a lot, and he's gotten really far. And just check out the rest of his books, by the way, because he's a phenomenal artist, a great teacher.
He's great for teaching kids.
Yeah. And his,
That's all I
the
can say
base
about him.
principles are really, really good. But yeah, this stuff where he talks about different sort of expressions and just, lining it up, this stuff really stuck with me. I really like this book. I recommend it, especially for beginning artists. It's really good about, expression, proportions, and just throwing together character designs. So, Cartooning for the Beginner by Christopher Hart.
So something interesting I'm just noticing now between our two shelves is you actually have a lot of, how to draw not how to draw books, but, I guess they are textbooks. Like the Animator's Survival Kit or the Christopher Hart book.
The
Illusion of Life, the Disney animation book. You have all these kind of learning art books. I just have just comics and stuff. Because I can't learn from an art book. I have to just read a bunch of comics and that's how you do this. And that's how you do that in comics. Which is a good and bad thing because then you understand comics, but you're also just understanding comics. You're not understanding a lot, a decent amount of the principles behind them. Mm-hmm. I think the only learning, comics learning book I have is the Scott McCloud books.
Scott McCloud,
they're amazing.
I have those on my shelf
and they're
too,
simple to understand.
That's for another season.
The next thing I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite comics. This comic. Before I read this comic, I tried to draw. I wanted to draw like Art Spielman from Matt, who did Mouse, and that book's amazing. But you can't kind of draw like that. And then I started reading a bunch of manga, but it was the Shonen Jump flagship books. It was just Bleach and Naruto. I was I want to draw like this, but I don't like that style very much. Bleach is a very cool looking book, but it's not great. The story sucks. It's horrible. Naruto, it was kind of just a fun kid's book to read. After that, I found this book at the library called King City, and it's it looks like nothing else on the graphic novel shelf at the library. So I ended up reading it, and it blew me away. It was so different and crazy. And I was also reading Bone at the same time, which was I kind of trying to find something in comics that was similar to what I wanted to do. And somewhere between King City and Bone by Jeff Smith, that was kind of where I wanted to be drawing. And I found that in between those two places, that's Mobius in between there. That's where that is, because the spectrum is Bone. It's it's comic strips, Pogo all the way to the left. And then just next to that, a little bit further to the right is Bone. Then you move a little bit further to the right, and that's Mobius. And then you move a little bit further to the right, and that's King City. And then a little bit further than that, you get Ranma. And that's where the influence tree kind of grows.
For you.
Yeah. Yeah, this book is... the content is hard to describe. It's about this guy who's a cat master, and that's where you have these syringes, and you put them in a special cat, and the cat turns into things and has special powers. It's really... And the story is...
You can't really explain it.
It's cool.
Unless you take drugs, and then you're oh, yeah.
It's one of the coolest comics I've ever read.
It also, is really neat.
The printing of the graphic novel is so... It's thick, which I like. It's pretty big, which I don't like. I don't like big comics. But this is one of the comics that you do want big, because you want to look at the art and the line work and everything. But the way it's printed is nice. It's got cool foldouts.
It feels real good.
Yeah, it's a nice book to have. And I ended up getting a copy a month after I read it at the library, just because I needed one on my shelf. And it's by Brandon Graham, who's one of my favorite artists ever. He's so friggin' cool. But yeah, King City. His other book, Multiple Warheads, is also super, super, super good, but this one's more important to me. Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. So, sticking with sort of how-to books, I actually pulled, we mentioned it earlier, the Animator's Survival Kit. It's by Richard Williams, and he was actually the director of animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is, I think, the best part of the book, because sometimes he'll talk about that sort of story and how he became the director and that sort of evolution to that almost peak in his career. It's a really, really phenomenal book. I'm a little past halfway done with it, and I haven't finished it yet, but it is so good, and it really helped me understand the things that were really confusing me about animation. If you guys watch the other stuff on my channel, I don't really animate. That's more like animatics. Technically, it's called an animatic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like the storyboarding of animation. It's the next step of a storyboard, just before you get really detailed and refined.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm not confident enough, and I don't have enough time to make a full 5-minute video about something in an actual animation. So I do something that we call animatics, which is the same thing that people like the Odd Ones Out and Jaden Animations and Domix do.
Because they're on YouTube and you need to pump out a video every week or
exactly.
So.
Yeah, it's fast and easy. If you check out my Twitter and stuff, I love to sort of mess about with animation, and I love to make little almost flipbook stuff. So I do actually use frame by frame. and I do stuff outside of Flash. And this is like where I get my principles, and this is what helps me understand that sort of.
If you ask anybody in animation for recommendations on like what books to get, this is going to be on their list. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
I tried reading it, but I couldn't. As I said, I can't do textbooks on how to do art. So.
This is really good though, because he talks about like he'll give you the principles and stuff, but he wraps it up in a story, and he wraps it up about like all these experiences. The dude is really old and he's been through a lot. Like he'll help explain to you. He's like, okay, so maybe I didn't want to do it this way, but this is why I do it this way now. And it makes a lot of sense, like how he uses different graphs and like the technicalities of the animation and the real boring stuff that actually like pays off in the end. Really good stuff. The Animator's Survival Kit by Richard Williams. I'm not sure if you can get anything other than the expanded edition now, but it's fantastic book.
The next book I'm going to talk about is actually it's not a zine, but it's like a floppy. I think it's just called floppy, and it's White Clay by Tom Herpick. Anything by Tom Herpick is amazing. Like flat out, like he's just one of the best artists like I've ever read. He's one of my favorites, if not my favorite. He might be my favorite. He worked on Adventure Time. He was a storyboard artist for that, and he did some amazing episodes like Hall of Egress and stuff like that. Like those kind of episodes. But his comics are amazing. This one, White Clay, I didn't know where to find them, like to order all of his comics. So I just emailed him. Just like,
oh, really?
Yeah, I'm just like, where do you keep these? And he's like, yeah, I PayPal'd him some money and he just sent me them and he signed them, which was nice. Yeah, he did little doodles on them and stuff. White Clay is amazing. It's just a collection of short comics that he did. The way a lot of his comics work are very dreamlike. Like some of them are like one-page comics and they're really great. I have his other stuff too, I forget what they're called, but they're the same size. They're like floppies and they're really great. But yeah, Tom Herpick's White Clay. I keep it like on my shelf by my desk all the time.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So the next book that I want to talk about, this is an actual how-to. It's called How to Be an Illustrator, and it's by Daryl Rees. It's the second edition. I bought it at the toy store that I work at. I found it and I picked it up and I was looking at it. It's really, really interesting. And I'm lucky enough to be able to work in a place where I get to see a lot of art. I get to see a lot of art supplies, which is fun, and we sell a bunch of picture books. So a lot of really cool, talented people actually end up writing and illustrating for these things. I think it's not glorified enough. I think it's really, really cool, and they work very hard on it. So he talks about some of those people and a lot of other things, like people who do magazine covers, like illustrators of all kinds. And it's really, really fascinating. So this is another one. Again, I haven't finished it yet. It's all sorts of different stuff. He talks about interviews with different artists. He refers to different sort of successes and failures of different artists. And he pulls up their works. And it's a great coffee table book because I think any time that he pulls up reference, it looks really good. And it's like sort of interesting. For me, at least, I really like it. And then all the sort of information wrapped around it is very, very fascinating. So it's not really teaching you how to draw. It's not teaching you techniques or skill. It's giving you some history and background as to why certain things work and why they do not, based on the success of other artists.
It looks pretty neat.
It's really cool. Do you want to borrow it later?
Yeah, I'll probably end up borrowing it.
It's really good.
I have two more things I want to talk about. One of them is a book that I always keep in my bag. It was on my shelf right now because I emptied my bag. This book, it's Meat House at issue 8, Head Games. And it's an anthology book, but it was published. But it's an anthology book. And it has a lot of amazing artists. It's crazy. They have Becky Cloonan, Brandon Graham, Farrell Dalrymple.
Ooh.
Dash Shaw is in here. Oh yeah, Tom Herpick has one page in here as well. Actually, no, he has more than one page. He has a couple pages. They're just hidden in here. Tony Sandoval is in here, who did Doom Boy.
Oh, I love Doom Boy.
He has a 4-page story in here that's really great.
Yeah.
And then Tomer Hanuka, who doesn't do enough comics like that.
What does he do?
He does posters and concept art, but he did a comic a little while ago that was really great. But yeah, I always keep this in my bag because no matter what mood I'm in, there's something in here that I want to read, and it's nice just to have when I'm walking around town and I sit down and I'm just flipping through something. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. I got it off eBay. It was $4.
It looks cool.
It's great. And the last thing I want to talk about is my absolute favorite comic series of all time, Finder by Carla Speed McNeil. So far there are 2 600-page tomes and like 3 little graphic novels that are like at the end, and it's still running in Dark Horse Presents, I think, with like a different arc, and the arc changes like every 250 pages there's like a new arc.
And by arc you mean like a different sort of plot?
Yeah, different story arc. And it's about this guy named Jaeger, who is like a sin eater, and it's really hard to describe the story because it changes a lot. But it's like this weird...
It looks almost like Scott McCloud.
It's from that era. But it's like this weird new age philosophical comic. Firstly, the art's amazing. It's just a really, really pretty book. The way I found it actually was at a library book sale, right? They had the first 4 issues. Like, just, like, sitting there, I was like, oh, this looks different. So I just picked them up, and they were, like, $1 altogether. So I got them, and then I read them, like, this is amazing. So then I found out that there are 2, like, tomes that you can get. So I ended up getting the tomes after a little while, and they're so amazing. Definitely worth having on the shelf.
Do they come in color or just black and white?
Just black and white. The new story arc that's going on in Dark Horse Presents right now is in color. It's okay. I don't know. I like the first couple arcs just because the story is a little more interesting to me. I don't know. And also it has like this kind of... The first arc, the first like 2 or 3 arcs introduces the main character Jaeger, and then he slowly becomes like a background character that just kind of interacts with the actual story. Well, and his story is always more interesting like in the background, but you focus more on like these intimate moments with like a different character while like this epic plot is going on with Jaeger in the background. But it's really, really amazing. I don't know, perfect comic for me. It's really great. I tried to copy the style, but it's really, I don't know, it's awesome.
Looks good.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? I'm going to talk about one last thing. It's not a book or a comic.
Wow.
But it's on my shelf. It's just...
You're off the walls right now.
Okay, well, it's this movie that I got a little while ago while I was in Boston. Well, I went to an anime store and I was like, what anime do they have? And I found this movie. I'm like, oh, it says Tetsuka on it. And then I ended up picking it up and it was amazing. It's like an awesome movie. It's Osamu Tezuka's Metropolis. Even though he didn't direct it, it's just kind of based on the manga he did. It's directed by Rintaro, and it's I think it's written by Katsuhiro Otomo, who did Akira. Ooh. But it's a super amazing movie. It's so fun, and the visuals are amazing. Everything about it is just...
And that finale, oh my God.
It has a really great story, animation. It's Tezuka, and there's not a lot of good Tezuka-style anime that still look like his drawing.
Yeah, it didn't... Tezuka did, like, originate all that stuff. When it started out, it was kind of clunky, and his work definitely didn't translate very clearly to anime.
Yeah, like, even the old Astro Boy, which he made, didn't... It was good, but it wasn't... I don't know. This I think, is, like, the mastery of the Tezuka look in anime. Like, I wish these, like... This studio or whatever would end up doing like the Buddha manga or like or like Blackjack, because the Blackjack anime that we have they're not very good, are they? Mm-mm. Yeah, but yeah, this is like the mastery of Tezuka in anime, and I think it's amazing. Yeah, just that it's kind of out of place because it's a movie, it's an anime movie, but like it's on my shelf, and it was on top of like a stack of things because I was gonna watch it.
It's called the shelf. That's like the only structure to this episode.
Yeah. Actually, I don't have a shelf. You actually have like a bookshelves.
I have several shelves.
I put my books on top of my dresser, under my bed, and in my bed.
Oh, you're such a deviant.
Yeah.
Aren't you a cool kid?
Brett's shelf, Bryce's piles.
The episode is going to be called The Shelf.
Okay, yeah. We'll just stick with that. Okay, anyway, that's all I got. That's the final of all I got.
I wrapped up my list way earlier, as usual. All right, well, thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been a fun season 1. Yeah, thanks for tuning in to the season finale of Conversation Farters. In between seasons 1 and 2, we're not going to tell you when season 2 is going to start, because that's going to take a while. But in between that, we're going to try to do... Every once in a while, we're going to do a mini episode where we just talk about a single artist, like Scott McCloud or Osamu Tezuka or Miyazaki or Brian Lee O'Malley. We're just going to talk about one guy for... like 10 minutes. Yep. And we'll put that out every once in a while. So you guys can look forward to seeing that. Okay, well, bye-bye. Take care, everybody. Oh! Thanks for tooting in. Okay, bye. Wait, what's a see you later fart joke? Smell you later. Don't toot anything I wouldn't toot. Wow, what a master of comedy. Goodbye, everybody.